So again, welcome everyone. My name is Erica Ferguson and welcome to the 60-minute webinar, Thriving Through Change. So really wanted to take this time to do this webinar as a way to give back. So if you got to see my little promo video where I was wearing this lovely same sweatshirt, I really talked about this instance of how as a community, as a country, as a world, we have been coming together in this notion of we are all in this together through this pandemic and this situation that we find ourselves in. So in being able to give my skill set of being a facilitator and being in the arena of talking about change, I really wanted to take this opportunity to do so. So thank you for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started because we have a lot to cover. I may have packed a lot of information in this because I got really excited in being able to share and just be a resource to everyone who took the time to be on this call today. So as we get started here, I'm going to pull up lovely presentation that we have for you here. So Thriving Through Change is the name of the webinar that you have signed up for today, if you forgot why you were here. So Thriving Through Change, and as you see this lovely animation of kind of what we're looking at for the next couple of months, is this kind of windy path. No matter where you find yourself, we are all being affected by this change. So a little bit about myself before we get started. Not a traditional bio that I would give. Usually I would talk about the different companies that I've worked with or what my resume looks like. But in the notion of talking about change, I wanted to bring a different light to this in the sense of we're all human beings and the type of changes that we go through in life. So you see that I work as a facilitator, master coach, and conversation catalyst, as I like to call myself. But in my adult life, my fun facts, I have worked in 10 different industries, some of those simultaneously. I have lived in 6 different cities since I've been a working adult. I have had 12 home changes. I have been married and I have a dog, right? So a lot of big life changes. And to share with you all, one of the biggest life changes that I've had recently is here in Los Angeles. I am on deck, supposed to be opening up a restaurant called Kale Me Crazy. And due to everything that is happening, that is on an indefinite hold. So we were 3 weeks away from opening, and now who knows what the future has in store. But it's those types of events that happen in our lives where we get this kind of blow and this kind of shock that we've got to be ready to either to bounce back in some way. How can we take what has happened and how can we find the opportunity in it? So that's what this session is all about. And I'm going to be speaking in the terms of you just as an individual in life, and you also if you are in business or even running a business. I'm going to cover the leadership aspect of this as well. So in getting started, great quote that I love by Jimmy Dean. I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can always adjust the sails to reach my destination. Jimmy Dean, right? So this instance of we cannot control this situation that we found ourselves in and however it is rocking our lives, impacting our lives. But what we can change is the way that we look at it. We can adjust our sails so that we can flow and we can find the destination and reach the destination that we have been working towards personally. So with this, how we start out in talking about change is first thing that we have to understand is everyone reacts to change differently. That's very important to understand. The way that you react to change is not necessarily how someone else reacts to change. And the first thing that we have to understand for ourselves is assessing fears. So we talking about mindset. Where is our mindset around change? So you see all these question marks, which sometimes it's just this notion of what is the fear? What is it that I'm afraid of? What is the threat? So a little bit of science and psychology here. Essentially, we see this dinosaur chasing this caveman. And when we look at this notion of what we call the amygdala response, so the threat response. So this is still a lovely feature that we have in our brains, if we call our brains 1.0 from when we were in our caveman days. Essentially, what is happening in this picture is we are seeing an animal that is chasing this little man, and his brain has gone into the threat response. I see a threat and I need to run away. I need to survive. Well, our brains have still kept that same notion, but now instead of a saber-toothed tiger or a dinosaur trying to eat us, we take that threat in other ways. So whether that's, I don't feel like I have stability anymore, I've lost control, whatever that is, it fires that amygdala, and then we go into what we call fight, flight, or freeze. So either I feel like I need to be combative to the change, I either need to run away and retreat from the change, or I just don't know what to do and I freeze. So essentially, this is what is happening if we are feeling any kind of threat coming on. If we see the stress rising and the anxiety rising, there is some type of threat that we fear in front of us. So it's understanding that it's okay to reach those points. I'm definitely not going to sit here and tell you that you know, you should be happy all the time and you should always see the opportunity. Not realistic. There are going to be times where we have that stress, we have that anxiety, we have that fear. But what I'm asking of you is that you have the awareness of where the fear is coming from, what the fear is, so that you can move out of those phases. What we don't want is that you stay in a high level of stress and anxiety. It's not healthy. Not healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, at all. So first question that I have for everyone on the call here, and you can just type this in the chat box. Again, I may not directly interact with it, but everyone, if you have it marked to all attendees so that everyone can see what you're saying, can be greatly beneficial to see if we're on the same page with people and where others are at. So what do you currently feel is most at threat at this moment for you, right? So some examples, is it the stability? Is it I feel like I've just lost control? Is it that I feel like I've lost my routine? Like, what is it that is most at threat and is missing right now that you're feeling this kind of anxiety or anxiousness around change? Something with a company. All right, so we got coming in socialization, mental health, job stability. That's a huge one right now. Yep, financial stability. What are the future opportunities? Status of summer internship. That's it's a huge one. Absolutely, right? So just the uncertainty going on. Okay, so a lot of things coming into the chat box right now where we see that we're all in these different places. So when we're looking at mindset, we really want to look at now is, do we have a helpful mindset around what the threat that we are perceiving? So either if we have a real threat, right? Like, this is a real threat. I have lost my job. I am without a job. I know I'm in financial, not in the best financial place right now. Or if I have a perceived threat of I could lose my job, these things could happen, we're going to have the same, science and psychology shows us that we're going to have the same type of response when it comes to the threat. So looking at, do we have a helpful or a harmful mindset around these things? We're going to start to look at these different notions here. So the first being surviving versus thriving. So the name of this session, this webinar, was Thriving Through Change, right? We want to thrive through change. But the difference with surviving is that you are in a reactive state. When you are surviving through change, something happens and then you react to it, right? Right away, or take some time. But that's more of a surviving, right? Like, I'm going to react as it happens. A thriving mindset is thinking more proactively. Now, there may be things that happen that you did not know were coming, but you are in a mindset of, I'm going to proactively find opportunities. I'm going to proactively take this change on. So we want to make sure that we are in more of a thriving mindset, but it's distinguishing. Do I feel like right now I'm in more of just a surviving mindset where I just react to change that is thrown at me? Or am I in a thriving mindset where I take a more proactive approach? Next, we're going to look at the pessimist or realist mindset. So in the sense of, this derives from the negativity bias. So when we look at negativity bias, that goes back to what I was talking about with the threat response. So when we have the threat response, essentially when we were trying to survive in our caveman days and we needed to be able to quickly spot the threat, we saw the negative first, right? We saw the negative first. So I have recently, I told you I lived in however many cities. In the last 3.5 years, I have lived in Atlanta, New York City, and now Los Angeles. I live in LA. And within that, right, anytime anyone would say, oh, what's it like living in New York? I'd be like, man, it's so expensive. And anyone goes, what's it like living in Los Angeles? And I'm like, dude, this traffic, right? Right away, the first things that come to mind are the negatives. And that is a human trait. And if you do not work on programming and changing those thought patterns, you are always going to see the negative first, because that is how our brains were designed. So when you see this pessimist or this realist view, it's, I'm finding the negatives first. Even in everything that has happened with COVID-19, there have been a lot of good. There have been a lot of people who have been giving their services, who have been donating left and right, a lot of people coming together, really coming in community, 6 feet apart. But there also has been a lot of negative, and sometimes that negative gets a lot more light, right? It gets a lot more light. So it's making sure of just to check for yourself, do I have a helpful or a harmful mindset there? The scarcity mindset. So scarcity mindset is definitely one I wanted to hit on with everything that is happening, is that when we get in such a state of fear and threat, we just start thinking about ourselves. We don't care about anyone else. And it's something we need to check ourselves on just a little bit. It's with scarcity mindset. I saw this picture, this meme not too long ago, and it was, I guess it wasn't necessarily a meme, but it was this older woman, and she was in a grocery store, and she had, she was pushing her little cart, and everything was gone. Like, everything was gone from the shelves. And it's that sense of scarcity mindset of, I've got to protect myself. I have to worry about myself, and I don't care about anyone else who's out there, right? So we need to make sure that if we get ourselves in a sense of a scarcity mindset where we're only thinking about ourselves, we need to understand, is this doing damage to others around us? Is it doing damage to the community? Is it doing damage to my team members or coworkers or to my family? So if I get in a scarcity mindset and I'm locked in a house with 3 people or whatever that may be, that's going to be hurting the people around us. So making sure to check, am I in a scarcity mindset right now where I think it's only me and I have to win and I don't care about anyone else? And then lastly, the growth versus fixed mindset. So this comes from psychologist Carol Dweck. So in the sense of, you either can fall into the sense of having a growth mindset. So growth mindset says, I'm open to opportunities. I'm willing to learn. I understand that where I'm at now, my intelligence is not fixed. I can learn, I can grow. Where fixed mindset says, how I am is how I am. This is how I'm going to be. This is what this looks like. This is the situation, and this is just what it is, right? So fixed mindset says, this is stuck. Growth mindset says, no, I can grow from this. I can learn from this. So fixed mindset versus growth mindset, really want to check ourselves to just see, do we have this helpful mindset or are we in a harmful mindset for ourselves? So it's a great check, a great check-in. Am I surviving? Am I thriving? Am I being a pessimist, realist, that negativity bias? Am I falling into scarcity? And do I have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? So we want to make sure that we're giving ourselves little check-ins throughout this process of the unknown right now and the uncertainty. Like, where am I at with this? One of my favorite quotes coming up next is from Stoic Seneca. And he said, we suffer much more in our minds than in reality. Right? And I really want you to take that in for a bit. It's one of my favorite quotes, because that essentially, with a lot of the perceived threats, is we start going down all of these different paths of, this is going to happen, then this will happen, then this will happen, and then I'm homeless, right? We get into this extreme out of nowhere. And it's so true that a lot of times we suffer so much more in our minds because we stay trapped in our minds of what could happen and playing the what if game. And that's a real dangerous game to play. So making sure that we are taking time to step back. And on this next page here, you'll see, as the great Brene Brown has said, the story that I'm telling myself. So if you are not familiar with Brene Brown, she is a researcher, and she is here in the United States, and she researches shame and vulnerability, right? 2 great things that we love talking about as human beings. And in researching shame and vulnerability, she has this notion of talking about how a lot of the times we tell these stories in our head, and we've already made up this whole scenario. We've already made up this whole scenario, and essentially it's being able to say out loud, whether you're saying it to yourself or to others around you, the story I'm telling myself is blah, 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 right? So is that what you're feeling? Is that true? Am I interpreting this correctly? Or am I making up a story in my head? What we really want to look at here is, how can we change the narrative of the story that we're telling ourselves? Because if we are in the sense of perceived threat right now with all the change that's happening, because it's a magnitude of change in different ways for everyone, it's how can I change that narrative to bring clarity and at least a little comfort to myself and those around me? Because we have to understand is when we get in high stress and get in high anxiety, that our immune system starts shutting down. And that is not what we want to happen in the current situation we find ourselves in. So it would be like a vicious cycle. So it's really checking in with ourselves and looking at, how can I change the narrative? How can I change the story that I'm telling myself? What can I do? So our next question here for everyone: what story are you telling yourself that you need to change? Essentially, is there a story that you're telling yourself that is not serving you? A story that you're telling yourself that is not serving you? I'm going to go over here to the chat box. Thank you, Devin, for sharing and being vulnerable and open with us. We were just talking about vulnerability. Devin said that I am powerless, which comes from learned helplessness. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Devin. So learned helplessness, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it comes from psychologist Martin Seligman. So in the sense of learned helplessness, it's I've been in this situation or in a situation previously where I've learned that I am helpless in this situation. So perfect example, if you've ever seen one of the viral videos of a baby elephant that's like tied to a post, not in like a cruel way or anything, I don't want any animal activists on me, but a baby elephant that's just tied to a post, and it's a post that they try to break away from and they can't because they're a baby elephant. What psychology shows us is that you can then take that same elephant when it is full grown and tie it to that same post with that same tiny little rope that it could break in 0.2 seconds, but it won't because of learned helplessness. I have already tried this before. It did not work, and I'm not going to try again. Learned helplessness. So thank you so much for sharing that, Devin. Sissy said images of myself as the little old lady looking at empty shelves. Hey, Sissy, I love that. Thank you for sharing. Absolutely. Donna said that agrees with Devin. Olivia says that I don't have enough experience to seek out my passion. Absolutely, Olivia. Thank you for sharing that. And that is right, that you're feeling, okay, maybe I just am not knowledgeable enough, or I don't have enough experience to go and seek that out. And I'll be the first to tell you, just do it, Olivia. I'm going to be your first endorser and say, do it. Just you learn by trying. You learn by trying. You will always hold yourself back, and you'll never feel like you know enough or that you are enough. So just go for it. And now's the perfect time to go for it. It's okay to fail. So thank you everyone for putting those in. So when we're looking at this session here, what we're going to be spending the bulk of our time on is this acronym FOCUS, right? This is our acronym. This is going to be our big takeaway now that we've set the stage of mindset. So when we're talking about focus, you see this lovely woman over here juggling. She is not me, and that's not me. But when she's juggling, you see that she is focused on one ball. So I learned to juggle long time ago. It was one of the first skills that I picked up. So I am going to juggle a little bit for you just to drive this point home. But when we are talking about this notion of focus, and we're talking about a lot of like life work balance, you hear that term a lot. I was just sharing this with a friend earlier, Matthew, I think he's on the call. And I was talking about this notion of when it comes to juggling, how I like to think of work-life balance or any of the different pools or pockets of activities or things that we have in our life. It's being able to take those and focus on one at a time, right? This whole thing about balance sometimes can get misconstrued, but when we look at juggling and focusing, I keep my gaze in one spot, and as one ball comes in, I kind of want to have you think of this as a freeze frame. So the ball comes, I freeze frame, I'm focused on this one thing, and then I keep juggling and I go to the next ball. So in the sense of right here, I don't break. So I'm right on the camera. I have this same focus the whole time, and I can only see one ball at a time because of where my focus is. And that's what we're looking at right here, is really taking out this notion of being able to multitask. I know as human beings, we think that we are all amazing multitaskers, or maybe not amazing, but we at least try, right? We at least try. And I want to show the power of being able to focus on one thing at a time, how powerful that can be. So really quick, we're going to do a quick exercise just where you're at. So what I want you to do and showing how multitasking is holding us back a little bit here. So what I want you to do is I'm going to give you two simple tasks that you could do eyes closed, no problem, right? You say, okay, I have these two tasks at work, or whatever these two tasks are. So first thing I want you to do, and you can say this out loud, if you're by yourself or whatever, you can say it in your head, whatever you want to do. I want you to count from 1 to 15 as fast as you can, right? 1 to 15 as fast as you can. Okay, great, right? Should be about done with that. On average, that takes about 2 to 3 seconds, so 1 through 15. Now I want you to do the first 15 letters of the alphabet, which is A through P. I won't make you count that out. A through P as fast as you can. All right, same thing, about 2 to 3 seconds on average that you can get through A to P as fast as you can. Now, when we get into this notion of multitasking, I want you to combine them, because that is what is happening with your brain. You're having to flip from one task to another. So you're going to go A, 1, B, 2. Go ahead and do all of that. All right, I'm gonna stop you if you're still going. I think we proved our point, right? We proved our point. Khadijah said, I made it to the letter C. Absolutely. And that is the point of when you come to multitasking, and I wanted to hit on this just briefly with all the change, because a lot of overwhelm can come, especially that most of us are working from home right now. If you are in a area where you've been quarantined. So you're at home where it's like, I need to do dishes and I need to get this work done and I need to do these, and you have all these extra distractions that you might not have had before. But it's understanding that when you are able to focus on one thing and give all of your heart and all of your energy to that one thing, you can knock it out a lot quicker than if you try to do two things simultaneously. So Terry said that was a challenge. Yes, it was. Absolutely, right? Something that you can do with your team just to show the power of being able to focus on one thing at a time. So with our acronym here that we're going to be working from, the first F of focus is family, and no, that is not a typo. It is family, which I will get into here. O for opportunities, C for control, U for understanding, and S for self. So in the notion of handling change and things not going as we would think they would go, that is no different here. So what we're going to do is we are going to go out of order with focus and breaking these down. So we're actually going to start with the S in self. As you see, this lovely woman here who is putting on her oxygen mask from when you've probably recently traveled in the last week. Haha, bada boom. That was a joke. Obviously, we have not traveled, but when we're looking at this, we've heard this notion time and time again on airplanes is you must put your own oxygen mask on first. If you do not take care of yourself, then you cannot help anyone else. We've probably all heard that before, but it is so true. We need to make sure that we are taking time for ourselves. It's very, very important, especially during this time. Like I said earlier, anything you are feeling is valid. You can feel any type of way about the change, but we really need to understand how we can get ourselves to peaks and flows, right? That I can bring myself up when needed. And even if I have downtime of feeling depression, of feeling stress, of feeling anxious, that is perfectly okay. But how can I get myself out of that? I don't want to stay in a lull during this period. So when it comes to self, some things that I've noted. First one is that during this time, we want to say more yes to self, right? This is the time to say yes. No matter what situation you are in, because of the magnitude of the things that have been canceled, there is more time on your hands. There aren't dinner parties. There aren't practices, kids practices. These things have been canceled. So it's looking at how can I say now more yes to self, and kind of combining that when we're talking about yes to self, when we're talking about the self-care. Are you using the extra time to get more sleep where otherwise you wouldn't get the sleep? Are you exercising? Are you going out for walks as kind of you're keeping your sanity and going outside? For me, I know my dog is exhausted. My wife and I, we've been walking and running her like 5 times a day. She's like, what is happening? But it's great for everyone, right? So more yes for self, whatever that looks like for you. Is that reading? Is that doing puzzles? The other day, I listened to an audiobook and worked on a 1,000-piece puzzle. I don't know if I've ever done that in my adult life, but it was so therapeutic. So how am I saying more yes for self? Turning commute time into me time. So quick, just thought here is how many people have been commuting to work, whether that's 5 minutes, whether you live in the Los Angeles, Southern California area, and that's an hour, 5 hours. This commute time that you no longer have, how are you utilizing that time? Are you turning that commute time into me time? Even if it took you 20 minutes each way, that's 40 minutes. Imagine what you would do in your normal life, normal schedule, if you had 40 extra minutes, right? You would cherish that, whether that's I'm going to read, I'm going to watch the show I wanted to watch, whatever that is. Really turn that commute time into me time. I see coming in is working out more, different things that we can do, absolutely, but cherish that time. If nothing else, say this commute time, I'm going to make sure it gets scheduled in for something productive. Asking for help is huge during this time. As we've talked about, there are a lot of feelings, there are a lot of emotions, whether you are an individual or you are a business. A lot of businesses, as I just said, that my business is on an indefinite freeze of opening a restaurant. It's being able to ask for help when you need help and not waiting until it's too late. There are a lot of services online if you need to talk to someone for therapy, reaching out to friends. There's a lot of different things you can do, but during this time, it's okay to ask for help, which comes into vulnerability. That sense of having some vulnerability and sharing that, you know what, I'm not okay right now, or I do have these fears, or I do have these concerns, and I just want to talk them out. That is perfectly fine, and that's part of self. You do not want to hold on and harbor all of these emotions in when it comes to all of this change that we're going through. Creating a routine, definitely recommend. If you do not have a routine set, when you are in this time, especially in this time when you are home and you are home all day and you have nowhere to go, you need to create a routine. Even if that's I'm waking up at the same time, or every other day I'm waking up at the same time, and then I meditate, I go and work out, I go for a walk, whatever that is, keep a routine. And the reason for that is, and we'll talk about this a little bit in control, is that this is going to help with some of that anxiety and stress, because you will still feel that you have control of something, right? That is the big thing when it comes to control, is I need to have this routine so I have something to hold on to. So creating a routine, not only does it help you be more effective with your time, but being able to create a routine also will help with those stress and anxiety levels. Next is, as we talked about, be very intentional with your time. I cannot say this enough. Be intentional with your time. My wife and I joke sometimes about, like, we'll get into these, you know, you got Netflix and quarantine is like happening on a whole nother level right now, right? These different shows and these different movies, and they're putting stuff out left and right because they're trying to keep everyone engaged, because they know we're trapped and that we're going to get bored at some point. But the sense of when we were watching these shows and these movies is watch intentionally. And what I say with that is, if you were going to watch something, know that I'm watching this because I just need a laugh. I'm watching this because I just don't want to think about anything. I'm watching this to learn. And when I say that is because we have to understand is that if we don't intentionally watch, we will just watch and watch and watch and watch and watch. And then 8 hours later, you'll be like, where did my time go? And that's time that you will never get back. How can I be intentional with my time and be very disciplined and say, okay, I'm going to give myself 30 minutes or an hour to watch whatever, and then I'm going to work on blank for an hour. I'm going to start my passion project. And even if it's only 15 minutes a day, start now. I actually met a woman at a networking event. Oh, I just touched my face. That's highly frowned upon. Don't do that either when we're talking about self. Wash your hands, don't touch your face. But being intentional with your time. I met a woman who started her business by just working on it 15 minutes a day. So she had a full-time job, had her passion project, and she said, I just said, I'm going to be very disciplined. I know I don't have much time, but I'm going to work on it 15 minutes a day. And she said that 15 minutes turned into me being able to start this business, because by the end of a month, I had worked over 8 hours on my business. And that was time that I would have never had before. So even if it's just 15 minutes a day, being very, very intentional with your time. So our next question is here, as we round out self, how are you actively putting yourself first during this transition? So how are you actively putting yourself first during this transition? Oh, Martrice says, I have not turned on Netflix yet. My TV time has not increased. I've turned to creative tasks, coloring, building Lego sets, hand lettering. I love that. Snaps to that. Andrea said, new morning routines, working on house projects, trying to get more sleep, meditate, being less harsh on myself. I love that. That's a great one, Olivia. Khadija, I keep my work, my phone, and computer in the other room when I'm working on all things head coach head. Absolutely. And I love that plug. Actually, Bree said, actually working out using YouTube for workouts at home. Eric Hoke said, I worked out for the first time since October. Yes, Eric. So yes, all of these great things that we are doing and putting ourselves first, and that we are seeing a little bit of opportunity that is coming through all of this change. So the next thing that we're going to look at, the next, letter that we're going to look at is the U in focus. Told you they were all out of order. So the U was for understanding. So I pulled this tweet here that I loved. I saw it and I was like, yes, this is so impactful. So I know a lot of people on this call are involved in sports and athletics and events. I myself am a former collegiate basketball coach and Division I men's football strength and conditioning coach, American football. And this quote says, if I have to give up my senior season of college baseball for someone to get to spend 10 plus more years with their grandparents, or a baby gets to live a full, happy life, then take it away. It's not about you. So sometimes it's this understanding that what is happening right now, we may feel is not fair, that it's really hurting us, right? Because as individuals, we may be feeling the pain in some way, but it's having an understanding, one, that this is on a much larger scale, right? That people's lives are literally at stake with the pandemic that is happening. So the understanding that, okay, it's not about me necessarily in this, and I'm going to make the best out of my situation, that may be, right? That me being responsible and staying quarantined is helping keeping someone else alive, where if I'm going around and touching things, that I put other people at harm. So it's having that understanding first. And then the second understanding is that everyone reacts to change differently. So this is really important, especially if you are running a business or you are still working within a business with your team members. It's having understanding and compassion for the people around you, that everyone is reacting to this change differently. So when we're looking at understanding, we want to make sure that the first thing we're doing is giving grace. So we're understanding that everyone has a different reaction to change. So I'm giving grace, giving assurance. So I heard this in a session that I led. This leader of a C-suite in a C-suite said, you know, through a lot of ambiguity, tongue twister, right? I try to offer assurance, and I say essentially, this is what I know, and this is what I think, right? So I'm trying to give you that transparency and help you be a little bit at ease, especially if I'm a leader, whether that's I'm a leader of a family and my kids are asking me questions, or I'm a leader of a team, or I'm a leader of a whole organization. This is what I know, and this is what I think. How can I give that assurance to people around me, and understanding that they're trying to process this for themselves? Giving hope. So giving hope that I'm provoking others to think positively and creatively. How can I give hope in this situation? How can we turn light into what is happening? So my wife and I, being cooped up in the house, we were like, we need to get out, but we can't really get out. So what did we do? We have a little garage, because we live in Los Angeles, so it's a little garage. But we opened the garage and we converted that into a studio/office. So now we have another space where we can at least stretch out a little bit, we can get out of each other's hair, but we can also work and open up and see the sun and the beautiful weather. And then again, being so grateful that we live in California, because I know many people are on this call are like, oh, that must be nice, right? But being able to look at how can I give hope and how can I look for the positivity or think creatively during this time. And then the last component here is to be able to give psychological safety. So psychological safety is coined by Amy Edmondson, so another psychologist. And essentially when we're talking about psychological safety, we're looking at this notion of, am I providing a space where people feel safe? They feel safe that they can come and talk to me about their ideas, their concerns, their beliefs, without any fear of repercussions of how I'm going to react to them. Like, I'm not going to yell at them. I'm not going to condemn them. I'm not going to harm their self-worth in any way. Then I am able to allow people to process and discuss thoughts, emotions, and concerns. So how am I giving that space and that psychological safety to people around me? Because if they fear me and they're not coming to me and telling me how they really feel, that's going to create a lot of problems down the road. I saw this, my wife shared with me this quote that she found, and it talked about during this time how to ask better questions. So in the sense of understanding that a lot of people in that threat response, especially if you are leading a team, this is really important, that people are going to be acting in a way of, I don't want to lose my job. I want to show that I'm valuable. So I'm just going to say yes to everything. You need me to do that? Yes. What do you need from me? Yes. Right? Which can be great, but can also be very overwhelming on the individual. So it's not being able to just ask, hey, how are you? Because our initial response is, I'm good, I'm great, fine, thanks, right? It's being able to say, how are you really, right? How are you really? Instead of saying, what is wrong or is there anything wrong? Being able to say, what is it that you need more than anything right now, right? What is it that you need more than anything right now? So I'm making these, I'm deepening the question, if you will, and I'm asking in a way that I'm really wanting you to tell me your true feelings and emotions. I'm not just giving you the blank. Is there something wrong? No, I'm fine. Okay, good. Just checking, right? I'm really kind of diving in deeper, and I'm being intentional in the way I'm asking questions, because I want understanding and want to make sure, are we on the same page, or do you at least feel comfortable in telling me that you're having a rough time through these changes? So understanding. So our question here is, how can you provide greater understanding to those around you? So whatever situation you're in, whether you are a leader, you're running a household, maybe you're just an individual on a team, whatever that may be, how can you provide greater understanding to those around you? Molly said, listen, right? So being able to listen to others, and that is huge. And during this time, we have to understand that there are so many people who are isolated, right? There are people who are isolated. They are the only ones in their homes. They are by themselves. And especially if they're extroverts, they're probably going crazy and they just need someone to listen to them. So being able to listen is a huge one. Donna said, listen and offering empathy. Devin said, checking in on people. Catherine said, checking in on those who I work with. Empathy, communicating my needs, absolutely, Olivia, right? They can't understand what they don't know, and ask the same from my colleagues. That's huge. Anna said, overemphasizing communication, harder to stand without nonverbal cues, setting up Zoom video calls. My team and I have a little meeting each day to catch up and discuss our work in a video way. It is therapeutic and efficient, says Mandy. Absolutely. Robin says, at Stephanie, my company has done a great job at leading through this environment. That's great. Right, so we see that we're setting up these calls, we're doing different things. Martrice said, I am one of those struggling extroverts. Absolutely. So we all need to check in on Martrice and understand that we're all struggling here. That's great. So understanding is a huge component in everything that's going on, especially if we're running a business. Like for me, I was very fortunate looking at the kind of more of the opportunity of not having opened yet, that I don't have to worry about employees. I don't have to worry about laying off employees. I don't have to worry about employees being in a sticky financial situation. But if I did have employees, then for myself as an owner, as a CEO, a president, whatever that is, it's looking at what type of understanding do I have for the people that work for me and with me? How am I providing that? How am I there for them as a resource during these uncertain times? Especially if you live in California, we've been mandated that we know at least through April 19th, we are in our homes, right? Like we have another month to go. So how can I provide greater understanding to those around? Next, we're gonna look at the F for family. So as I said, this is not a typo. So family stands for friends/family, right? Friends/family. And what we're looking at this notion of is really relationships. So what you have on your screen here are some lovely pictures. So I put these faces here to protect the innocent because they had no idea I was throwing them into this. But what happened here was I shared, if you saw my video for this session, a week ago, it was my birthday. And so for my birthday, it was my first ever quarantine birthday. Turn up for the quarantine birthdays that are happening right now. And so what my wife organized was this essential virtual toast where people from all over the world, friends, family, business partners, hopped on the call. And even if they were just on for 2 seconds, offered a birthday toast and then hopped off, or they stuck around for the whole time. And it was so beautiful and it was so amazing. And it's just this notion of how people are coming almost together more with technology than further apart like before, right? Before we went into this new way of living. And the sense of that is because we're all home, we're all in this situation, and we're all quote unquote available to some extent. So being able to connect with people that we wouldn't normally connect with, or that it's been a while. And even in this second picture here, so my family, which my mom taught me this game of golf, and we've been like obsessed with it. I don't know if anyone's played it. If not, Google it and learn it because it's really fun. But we actually played this game. So you'll see that we're here in 3 different cities, our family, playing this game with actual cards. And it's just been so much fun. And it's like, this is nothing we would have done if we would not be in this situation. But the big thing with this family component is the R. It's all about relationships. So outside of friends and outside of family, right, making sure we're reaching out to people. But what I want you to take out of this one is being strategic with your relationships, especially if you are in business. Listen to me if you are in business. This is huge right now because this is an opportunity where a lot of people are operating out of that scarcity mindset that we talked about earlier. They are worried about themselves. They are worried about their businesses. They're not worried necessarily about outside relationships. If you are in a position where you can break out of that cycle and you can reach out to clients, you can reach out to stakeholders, you can reach out to managers, whoever it is that you can start to build that connection with and say, hey, I just wanted to check up on you during this time. How are you doing? It's not that I need anything from you, right? Because most of the time in work, I'm calling because at the end of the day, I need something, but it's just, I'm going to make these check-ins and I'm going to build these relationships. And I promise you, once we come out of this and we get back to whatever the new way of living is going to be, you having those strategic relationships is going to be beyond beneficial. Like you won't be able to put a price tag on that. And if you are looking for a job, right? If you are in the sense of looking for a job, or if you're not sure what the future holds, this is the perfect time to start to network with people, right? Start to network with people. People have more time on their hands than they would in a normal living situation. So how can I start networking with people, or how can I set up with calls? One thing that I've seen is that people are setting up calls with friends or friends of friends that are in an industry or in a field that they're interested about, right? So being able to call and say, hey, Erica, I'm really interested in speaking and talking and facilitating. Could we set 30 minutes aside so I could just learn a little more about what you do? You need to be very, very strategic about building those relationships and getting those contacts in with people. So this quote here is, time is the currency of relationships. There's no way to invest into a relationship without investing your time. So making sure that we understand time is the most valuable currency. It is the most valuable asset that we have. You can never, ever get it back. How are you using that time wisely? How are you investing in your relationships? How are you thinking outside of scarcity mindset and outside of where you are now for creating partnerships when this is over? If you have a business, who am I reaching out to now that, hey, I don't know what could come of this, but I see that we're working in similar lines and that we could connect somehow. So let me just start building this relationship now, because I don't know what it could look like in the future. So when it comes to this notion of the R, or I guess, sorry, F for family, but R for relationships, who can you strategically reach out to during this period? Is it rekindling friendships or family? Or is it that, hey, I can start thinking about the industries that I'm going in. I can start reaching out to people because I know they have more time and I know they're stuck in their house, and that, hey, they may get bored and I may just get a call from whoever, Jennifer Lopez. She might just say, yeah, I've got a few extra minutes. You never know, right? But who can I strategically reach out to during this period? So we want to type there in the chat box. Oh, yep, the game there, I missed it. Yep, Catherine wrote that. So Catherine's my mom. Hi, Mom. She hopped on golf. Yep, that's the name of the game. What do we have here? So Marissa said, my Dodgers friends and I are doing a virtual opening day gathering tomorrow at 1 p.m., which would have been first pitch. Oh, that's awesome. That's great. It's great, Marissa. Olivia said, I want to get into coaching so I can reconnect with my high school coach. Absolutely. It's a great start, right? So reconnected with high school coach and then being able to connect with other coaches. What have been your experiences? What resources would you give? I have some time on my hands. Are there any books I can read? Are there any videos I can watch? Tanya said, encouraging my customers who are working on testing and vaccines. Yes, absolutely. Danielle, my softball players to get them active. Arlene said, mentors and other WISE members. Solomon said, virtual home workouts with their family and friends. Mentors, absolutely. So we see all of these different people that we can get on and that we can be strategically connected to. So very important that we're looking at who can I be strategically connected to. So the next letter we're going to is the C for control. So as we see this parent here who feels like they have lost all sense of control, which may be how you are feeling if you are in a parent in a similar situation. But when it comes to going through all of the change and making sure that we are thriving through change and we are having that proactive mindset, we want to make sure that we are taking control of as many things as we can control as possible. So when we look at control, we really want to, as we look at the essentially locus of control theory, so this comes from psychologist Julian Rotter, things outside of my control. We do not want to focus on those right now. We cannot do anything about us being quarantined in our house. We cannot do anything about the business being mandated to shut down, whatever that is. Things outside my control are not going to be helpful at this time. Things within my control are super helpful. So it's being able to break down, what is this thing? Okay, that's not within my control, but what components of it are within my control and what can I do about those? So things within my control, we want to focus on those. The second is thoughts and decisions. So going back to Martin Seligman, psychologist, he's known as the father of positive psychology. And he simply says that one of the greatest breakthroughs in psychology is that we have the power to control and choose how we think. Like that is one of the greatest breakthroughs in psychology. So being able to understand that your mindset and your decisions and the way that you think is going to be the absolute foundation for getting through change and thriving through change. So being able to understand, I control the way that I think and the decisions I make. You are fully in control of that. Number 3, shut out the noise. So huge, so huge. So the other thing is that you control a little audio volume in your life as well. You can turn things up, you can turn things down. Right now, there is so much news. There is so much that is being thrown at you about the stimulus package, about what's going on in the world, what's shutting down, how long we're going to be shut down, about the Dow dropping, the Dow rising. And it's understanding that you need to be in control of what you consume. You do not need to take in everything that is thrown at you. That is going to be very, very overwhelming and very stressful. Only take in what is necessary. And I tell you, I promise you, because I have cut out news for the most part, is that if there is something groundbreaking, you will find out. People will make sure that you know. They are not going to leave you out. They're going to make sure that, hey, did you hear about this? And then you can research. But one thing that I do is I proactively try to go in and research things for myself. I go in intentionally and say, I want to learn more about this. And this is the resource I'm going to look at. I'm not just going to wait and have all these things thrown at me, right? So shutting out the noise. It's very important that you control that. It's very much like this example that I heard once of, you know, waking up and having your phone right next to you and you have all of these messages and all of these texts. And it's the same idea of, as soon as you open your eyes, would you be okay if 30 people came rushing into your bedroom to tell you good morning and tell you what they needed? You'd be like, whoa, wait, let me get dressed. Let me brush my teeth. It's the same thing. When you have your phone right there and you're just letting this noise be thrown at you, you essentially are waking up or putting yourself in a state where it's just bam, 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 bam. So control that. Finding your anchors. So when we talk about finding your anchors, this is for you to find out what anchors you. What are your values? What are the things that you hold true to your heart that you can always keep no matter what? So honesty being an example, right? So if honesty is something that is an anchor for me, I'm always going to be honest or act in a high level of integrity. Okay, great. So understand that is my anchor. And no matter what happens throughout this change, I am going to stick by that anchor. So discovering, what are the anchors? What are the things that I need? Is it something that I need to feel like I am making a difference in the world? And how do I do that? So no matter what I'm doing, as far as like providing free resources and webinars and helping people out, that I am doing meaningful work, I am helping people. And so that is a way to stick to your anchor. 5, routine, routine, routine. So we hit on this a little bit with self, but it's so important because it is something that you can control. Routine, routine, routine. Stick to the things that you can control. And then number 6, when we are talking about thriving, it is be proactive. You can control the way that you go and you search out opportunities, and that you are proactive about the changes that are happening to you. So being proactive means I am actively taking steps to take action, actively taking steps to take action. So how can you be proactive in whatever situation you find yourself in? So when it comes to control, our question now is, how can you gain a greater sense of control for yourself or others? So if you are in a position where you are a leader, right? So I am leading a team, I am leading an organization, I am leading a household. How can you gain a greater sense of control? Because sometimes people don't understand that they're losing control, right? It's just, I don't feel like I have flexibility. I'm so uncertain of what's going on. Okay, as your leader, as your mom, dad, whoever I am, I can help you gain some control in different areas. This is something you have control over. This is something you have control over. So how can you gain a greater sense of control for yourself or for others? We have commit to a routine and nourishing the body. Routine is huge. Create that routine. Ryan said, create that routine and try to stick with it. Sissy said, control for me, routine. After this call, I'm going to sit with this. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sissy. So routine, letting people know your boundaries. That's a huge one, Julie, right? That's great. So in the sense of letting people know what your boundaries are, that is a part of control. So if my boundary is, hey, like I know we're working from home and it seems like we're on maybe all times of the day, but I'm going to shut down at 6 p.m., whatever that may be. Like I'm not going to be on Slack. I'm not going to be able to hop on a Zoom call. Like that is a boundary. I need to have my family time. So it's setting your own boundaries and being very clear about those boundaries and about those expectations. We got a lot of routine, but allowing flexibility. Love that, Amy, right? So I'm setting routine, but I still understand that I need some flexibility, that things won't always go according to how I need them. Routine is huge, and positive thinking. Set a Zoom appointment with a therapist or psychologist. Lubbock, that's huge. Absolutely. Snaps to that, right? So how can I gain a greater sense of control for yourself or others? And so then our last letter we're looking at is, which I feel is one of the biggest letters in opportunities that we have, is the O for opportunities. So you see here a golden egg of opportunity falls into your lap this month, and that it has literally fallen into your lap. So when we're looking at opportunities, what I really want us looking at is that there is always an opportunity through change, no matter what kind of change it is. And if I could tell a quick story. So in 2011, I lost a lot of people in my life that were really close to me. It's some of the hardest change that I've gone through. And in one of those particular losses was my best friend, and she passed away from accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. So if you were unfamiliar with carbon monoxide, it is an odorless, tasteless, senseless gas. You wouldn't even know if it was in the room around you, right? So she passed in her sleep because there was a leak in her apartment. And so essentially with this change that just I hated, right? This was not a change I would want. It's not a change I want for anyone, but it is the reality that this is a severe change in my life. And being able to go through that, and then getting to the point where, you know, through this change, we were able as a group to find the golden opportunity. So within this change, what we worked on as a group of friends is coming together and worked on getting a petition signed and then a bill in her honor, in the sense, if you were renting out a house or an apartment or a duplex in this particular state, that you must put a carbon monoxide detector in there, because she was renting and didn't have a carbon monoxide detector. Had she had one, it would have alerted her. But being able to find the golden opportunity, no matter what change you're going through, is what we're really seeking here. And it doesn't matter how long, well, let me take that back. We want to look at getting to the point of where is the golden opportunity. My point was, it may not happen right away, right? I didn't lose my friend and then the next day I said, this is what we're going to do. That's not what happened. That's not realistic, but it was getting through time of finding what is the golden opportunity. I'm not going to stay in the state of helplessness or feeling like this change has now just taken my life completely off course. It's that there is an opportunity in everything that happens if your eyes are open for it. So as we're looking at opportunities, it's looking at what is the golden opportunity through all this change and all this disruption for you. Is it developing a new skill set, right? You have time on your hands. This is the first era in a quote unquote almost recession of being able to be locked in our house with infinite resources. You can literally learn anything that you want. You could teach yourself if you are determined enough. Online, you can teach yourself. Like, that's amazing. If you look at other times where people have been through recessions or been through times like these, they did not have these resources. It was not available to them. So take advantage of that. The next is changing your habits. One thing that we've even been doing in our household is we aren't like great dishwashers. That's one thing we're kind of like, who wants to wash the dishes? But we've been getting into such a great routine of, okay, we're cooking every night, so now we wash the dishes. And how can I change different habits for the better? One thing that would be a shame is to go through all of this, right? We go through all of this and we're quarantined for this long and we didn't take the time to get better from it, right? That we came out just the same as we went in and there was no real change from us. So how can we use this time to change our habits and grow? So learning and growing being the next one. How are you investing your time? So are you investing in reading? Are you investing in watching documentaries, watching TEDx talks? How are you learning and growing? Even if that's industry trends, if you're a business, how are you researching industry trends? How are you researching recessions and things that have happened in the past to know what the pattern's going to be? Because patterns in history repeats themselves. So definitely something to look into. Maybe you're looking at investing and looking at stock markets or in retail or real estate. That's what I was looking for. But it's how are you learning? How are you growing? How are you looking for those opportunities? How are you helping others? So in the sense of how I'm doing this webinar, just to help others. I'm not here to pitch you anything. I'm not trying to sell you anything at the end of this. It was genuinely to offer help. So how are you using your skill sets to help others? Are you looking in your own community and saying, hey, is there someone that I could go get their groceries because they're older or they have a weak immune system and I could go out into the world for them? How can I help others? What is the opportunity here to do something for others? Start/try something new. It's the perfect time to start or try something new, kind of get out of that comfort zone. Maybe it's cooking. Maybe cooking hasn't been a forte of yours and it's, hey, I'm going to start trying to cook. It's the perfect time to experiment, to learn, to start whatever that thing is. Brainstorm new ways of working. So this is huge for anyone that is running a business, that is in a position where you're uncertain about your status with your job. I know I saw some job uncertainty. We want to take this time to start brainstorming what are going to be the new ways of working after this shift, after this change, because I promise you it's not going to be like how it was before. It is going to be different, whether that's businesses start realizing, hey, we actually function pretty well working remotely. Maybe half of our workforce is going to be remote because we save money that way. Whatever it's going to be, you want to think proactively about what does my industry look like it could turn into? What are some different possibilities? I was talking to a friend the other day and he shared this idea that he came up with, which was brilliant. And he shared this idea of just, I noticed this thing that there's a need for when we are face to face, but there isn't anything for it virtually. So he essentially is creating a business of offering this product in a virtual space because he can see the vision forward of, hey, this is something that people are going to be looking for maybe during this time right now, but also in the future. So how are you brainstorming new ways of working to keep yourself relevant and to keep yourself valuable in your role? Create and innovate. So perfect time to create and innovate when we're talking about, okay, what can I create? What can I innovate during this time? How can I turn my office into my garage into an office, right? How can I be creative? How can I be innovative? I've been seeing in different trainings, virtual trainings I've been doing with companies, I asked them at the beginning, what's your favorite quarantine activity? And it's been amazing just to see how people have come up with different games that they're playing with their kids or different activities or ways that they've changed their houses so that two partners can have an office here, an office there, and just how people are being more creative with this time, right? And that otherwise we may not have been if we weren't isolated like we are now. So being creative and being innovative. And then last is taking risks. If you are in a position where you can take some risk right now, now's the time to do so because you have a little time to learn from it and bounce back. So what are some risks I can take? Or maybe you're looking at even something as far as investing in the stock market right now. Am I taking those risks because, the amounts are a lot lower so I can take a little more risk, but it's seeking out and looking at what are those risks that I could take and that I could afford to take. What is the golden opportunity here? So with opportunities, we're getting into, of course, the question, what's the golden opportunity for you during this disruption? So looking at the change that you are facing and the changes that you are going through, what's the golden opportunity for you during this disruption? Looks like we got some hot things going in the chat box. Khadija said, I struggle with starting projects and not finishing them. So now I do finish Friday. Whatever I start that week, I have to finish it by Friday. Yes, love that. You're getting a lot of snaps on that one. Nancy said, updating my finance plan. It's a great one. Finish Friday is great. All hands on deck for Finish Friday on the 27th. Yes, everyone's hopping on there. Let's see a couple more things. Working on getting my real estate salesperson license during this downtime. Great time to use the opportunity. Learning how to manage remotely. That's a huge one. Great book I'd recommend on that. I don't remember who, I can't see who said that. Martrice, great book I'd recommend on that is Radical Candor by Kim Scott. That's a great one in talking about managing in different ways, even talking about a little remote action in there. So that was Radical Candor by Kim Scott. It's a great book to look into if you're looking for an audiobook or something to help. Building new habits into the routine, remaking my creative space. Everyone's on this Finish It Friday. Chance to learn Spanish, absolutely. Right now, I just started the other day. I did my first lesson on Duolingo, but still really cool. I did Mandarin, German, and then I've been learning Spanish. But I was like, hey, why not pick up a couple more, right? Just not do a couple of Spanish or language dips. Finish my online math class and becoming a better housekeeper, absolutely, right? So growth in knowledge and skill set. So we see all of these different opportunities that await for us, that there is a golden opportunity in this change. It's this, that we have to get out of that negativity bias of only seeing the negative what is happening. And so, and coming back to an end here of our focus, so that was family, really talking about how are we being strategic with our relationships, opportunities, what is the golden opportunity right for this right now of everything we're going through. Control, where can I have a sense of control and a realistic sense of control? I cannot control those external things. Understanding, how am I offering understanding to others and realizing that they are processing differently than I am? And self, how am I taking care of myself throughout all of this? So here I have a picture of a palm tree. And this was a piece that I actually wrote. I wrote a piece about a palm tree when I used to coach for my athletes. And it was this notion of that we are palm trees through storms, in the sense of if we are losing, right, we're going through a losing streak, as we call it in coaching, that a palm tree bends with the storm, it does not break. So when you see a palm tree, they are in tropical climates. They are in climates usually that can withstand, that go through hurricanes, and palm trees are always the trees that are left standing. You see these trees that are much wider, much bigger, much stronger, and they break, they crumble, they fall, they snap. But a palm tree does not break. It bends with the storm, and then once the storm is over, it pops back up. And we are all palm trees. No matter what storm we're going through with the challenges, we are going to bend with it, and we are going to pop back up. So life doesn't get easier or more forgiving. We get stronger and more resilient, right? That's what it's all about, is being able to thrive through change is about that resiliency, And so last I have here, many things have been canceled. So all of the things around the world that have been canceled, time is on your side. It's up to you. What are you going to do to thrive? The ball is in your court, as we say in sports, and it's looking at how are you going to take this time? How are you going to seek the golden opportunity and to make yourself a better person, make your organization a better organization, or make your business thrive through this, right? How are you going to take that proactive mindset? And last thing I have before we're out of time, and then I'm going to do some question answer if you want to stick around, but if you need to hop off, I completely understand, is a quick little story. It's a Taoist parable. And in this Taoist parable, it goes, there was a farmer, right? So there was a farmer, and he had this one prize stallion horse. And one day the horse ran off. Upon hearing that the horse ran off, his neighbor came over, and neighbor said, "Man, I heard about your horse. I'm so sorry to hear that." Farmer replies very cool and calmly, "Who knows what is good or what is bad?" Neighbor's like, "I'm pretty sure it's pretty bad. It was your prized asset. It's the only thing you had." And so he's like, "Okay, whatever." Then the next day, the horse comes back, and not only does it come back, but it brings 4 other wild horses with it. Neighbor runs over and is ecstatic. "Man, I can't believe your luck. You've lost your horse, and now you quadrupled your earnings and your worth. Like, this is unbelievable." Farmer, "Who knows what is good or what is bad?" Neighbor's like, "Man, this dude, he's crazy." Then the next day, the farmer's son is maintaining and cleaning one of the horses, one of the new horses that has joined the team, if you will, and he gets bucked off the horse and he breaks his leg. Neighbor comes back and he's like, "Man, I'm so sorry to hear about your son. Like, you can't catch a break." The farmer goes, "Who knows what is good or what is bad?" And then on the following day, the army was sweeping through the village, through the town. And what happened was they ended up skipping over the farmer's house because he had broken his leg. And it finally dawned on the neighbor, this notion of who knows what is good or what is bad. And the power in this story is understanding that we try to deem things as good or bad through change, when change is a constant. As the only kind of consistent thing in life is change, and understanding that we don't necessarily know what is good or what is bad, because one thing can happen and we never know what will trickle from it. So really going out into the world and understanding that there isn't necessarily a good or a bad, it's just a constant, and we don't know the ebbs and flows that come from changes. So with that, I'm going to conclude. I thank you so much for your time. We're going to do a little question answer if you have the time to stick around. If not, here's my information on the screen. Please stay in touch. I appreciate you being here today, and I hope that this was valuable and worth your time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we'll get into a little question answer here. So I'm gonna go back to, if you wanna take a quick, I'm gonna give a couple seconds for people to jot that down or take a screenshot if you want. A couple seconds. All my contact information, let's stay connected. Okay, great. Going back to now little question and answer. So if you put question and answers, I don't know if I'll be able to get to all of them, but I will try to hit some of them. So I'm gonna bring my face back to the screen now, so that I can see if we have any question, any answers going on. Thank you, thank you. Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Everyone's saying thank you in the chat box. Thank you for being here. Okay, so let's see what questions we have here, if there are any questions. Oh, where are we going? Okay, Devin has asked, how do you see possibilities even if you're broke/unemployed? Absolutely. Thank you so much, Devin, for asking that. So first thing I've got to say, Devin, is that essentially you're in a position where all you can go is up, right? If you're already broke, you feel I'm broke, I don't have any financially to go, I'm unemployed, then definitely being able to go up. So when we looked at those opportunities earlier, Devin, it's you are in a position right now that you could go any direction that you wanted to go. You could teach yourself whatever you want to teach yourself, and it's understanding what is it that I want to do with my this time. I could stay broke and unemployed, and I can stay in this mindset of I'm just not going to do anything, or I could say I'm going to teach myself how to do X, or I am going to start networking, or see, hey, I know this company's struggling right now. Like one thing that you could even look at is that there are companies who are having to lay off people because they cannot afford to pay them. If you are already in a position where you are unemployed, you could volunteer to do free work. And then once companies come out of this, what are they going to do? They're going to say, hey, Devin's been amazing. Let's bring Devin onto payroll. So there are different possibilities and opportunities. It's just that you have to seek them out. Even in this notion of, I don't see where people are hiring, I don't know where the benefit is for me right now, that there are possibilities, there are opportunities. It's just all about mindset, Devin. So I hope that's helpful a little bit. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for asking that, Devin. Let me see if there's any other questions. Thank you, Lamar. Thank you, Maya or Mia. I want to make sure I'm pronunciating that correctly. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Terry. Everyone's saying thank you. Julie said, is there something that you think you can create for yourself? Question mark. This could be a time oh, absolutely. So Julie was chiming in, Devin, is there something that you want to create for yourself? You know, you hear all of these kind of amazing stories of even like Tyler Perry, who was homeless, was living on the street, and now he's built this mega, you know, studio in Atlanta, right? That he has all these movies, that he's this actor, that he built this. And he says in his interviews, I had nothing and I had nowhere to go nowhere to go but up. And so I just built it. I just created it. So yeah, great point to add on. Sissy said, how do you deal with obstacles to routine? Yes, 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 yes. So great question, Sissy. So when it comes to creating routine, right? When it comes to creating routine, it's definitely starting out small. Well, let me start with this. It's first expectations, right? You have to manage your expectations. So in the sense of, I am trying to create a routine, I want to stick to routine, it's managing expectations and knowing up front that this may not go how I'm visioning the first go or the first week, but it's being able to say, okay, how can I break this down into smaller steps? So it's, if you have, let's say, 4 components that you want to have into a routine, you've got a hypothetical morning routine that's going to be 2 hours, right? So you say, I'm going to do A for 30 minutes, B for 30 minutes, C for 45 minutes, D for 15 minutes. It's looking at, okay, how can I break this down and set realistic expectations for myself? Maybe it's, okay, no matter what, I get A in, right? I get A in. And then maybe it's next week I add B. So no matter what happens in my day, I have A and I have B, right? And then it's knowing that if I am focused on having A and having B, what else in my day, if I'm falling into a time crunch, can I push to this side, can get pushed to the next day, because I've already managed the expectation and told myself A and B are non-negotiable. I'm going to do those two things because I'm creating this routine. But the other advice I would give for routine is it's best to do a routine first thing in the morning, because that's when the least amount of people are going to interrupt you. So if you can, first thing in the morning is going to be easier to get into a routine. That's great. See, thank you for asking that, Sissy. Let me see if there's any other questions. I'm changing the time. Matrice said, will the recording be available for the attendees? Yes, I'm going to send out the recording. So I will have the recording for everyone. And so you can replay it if you found it helpful. That's great. Thank you for asking. Any other questions? I'm gonna, oh, maybe I have one. I have some popping in here. I'm reading it. Okay, so it says, I was potentially offered a new opportunity before this pandemic. However, things are drastically different than before this proposition came up. Is it appropriate to follow up, or should I practice patience? Absolutely follow up. I would definitely follow up, but follow up with understanding, just as we talked about. So in that, I would follow up and say, you know, we discussed this. First ask how they're doing, right? So how are you doing? I know this is a difficult time for everyone. I just wanted to follow up, as I know we were talking about, you know, X, and I wanted to see, is that something that you still are working towards now? Can I be an asset to you during this time? Or is it something that, you know, would be better off in the future? But what I'm going to say to you is don't say that. Like, give them the opportunity to say that. You want to be in the position where you are ready to work. So saying, you know, how are you doing? How's the organization? I just wanted to follow up with blah, 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 blah. And then if they're in the position where it's, hey, we got a lot going on, thanks for checking in, but at this time, we're going to have to hold off. Then, okay, great. Then you can send another of completely understand that. You know, I'll reach back out once things have settled down. Thank you. You know, let me know if there's anything I can do in the meantime, if you're willing to offer that. But definitely reach out and let them be the ones to say, you know, not at this time, because you never know. It may be things were just so hectic. They were like, oh, absolutely, we need the help. Thank you for reminding me. So you never know. May I share with others? Yeah, Sissy, absolutely. Once you get the link, you can share it with others. Yep, absolutely. Also, I think my notes are good, but not perfect. Great. All right. Well, it looks like, I don't see any other questions coming in. So thank you so much for being here today. I greatly appreciate your time. Again, I work with a lot of businesses. I work with Fortune 500 companies, a lot of small businesses, medium businesses. So if I can be an asset to your organization, let me know. I am here. But thank you so much for being here, and I greatly appreciate your time. So is it okay to add you on LinkedIn or just following? Yeah, go ahead and add me. Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you so much for being here today. I greatly appreciate your time. So have a great rest of your day and go out and find that golden opportunity. So take care, everyone.